And we are finally live, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are placed. This is the Catholic Publicist, and today we'll just be having a bit of a chill video. Lord willing, this might have a second part as well, because I've still got to review the second video between these two frauds, Esther Dhanraj, aka Hindu Jezebel, and Tovia Singer, or rather call him Abdul Takia Swinger. Good to see you, Dean, servant of Jesus Christ. Hey, John, good to see you. Just waiting for more people to show up. And hey, Valerian, God bless you. Hey, Steadfast Godcast, good to see you. So yeah, it's been a while since I'd last streamed. Please keep me in prayers for the session. I ask God, the Almighty Trinity, to bless all of us and let the Spirit take over and just guide the session, and we don't get into issues like internet connection problems and technical issues and all those kind of sorts. And yeah, just mods, just be vigilant about detractors or attackers coming in the chat, because I have a feeling that fraud Canadian Catholics followers are just going to show up pretty soon. Hey, Sadat, good to see you, man. Oh, yes, John, I do understand and speak Hindi. Anyway, first of all, I'll just drop the link in the chat. You guys can have a look. Can you guys see the link in the chat? So that's the video I'll be reviewing today. And I'll just share my screen. Share the entire screen. Got it. So you should be able to see my screen as well. Hey, Lucian. Good to see you, man. Long time. I just want to check if the audio is good.
Outreach Judaism. This is an international organization dedicated to countering the...
Is the audio good, guys? I just want to check that. I know you guys might take some time to respond because there's about a 10-second lag. Cool, audio is good. Hey, CCDV. Nice, sweet. Okay, so I'm just wondering, why is this Hindu Jezebel in the first place having an interview with this lunatic, Tovia Singer? I just can't understand. And they just gang up together and they bash Christianity. I just don't get it. First of all, she comes from the Hindu nationalist movement. Hindu nationalist movement was born, has its roots in anti-Semitism, by the way. Okay, that's another story. I might cover a bit of it during today's video, and probably more in part 2. And the other thing, this Jezebel goes about attacking the Old Testament and also the God of the Old Testament. So I just don't get it. Why are both of them sitting over here attacking Christianity? And on top of that, there's a third guy called Jerome Anto, who's supposed to be debating Tovia Singer in this conversation. He's supposed to be debating him, okay? But you'll see what kind of a character Jerome Anto is too. All right.
efforts of missionaries and fundamental Christian groups to convert Jews. Do not miss today's show. It's a talk between a rabbi, a practicing Christian, and an ex-Christian. Rabbi Tovia Singer is a practicing Jew and is better known for founding Outreach Judaism. This is an international organization dedicated.
Outreach Judaism. Rabbi Tovia Singer with the wife cow worshipper. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly true, man, Lucy. And that's what it is, the golden calf worshipper. The calf worshipper.
dedicated to countering the efforts of missionaries and fundamental Christian groups to convert
Oh yeah. That's Tovia Singer, your classical quote unquote counter missionary. Okay.
Jews. He is a world renowned public speaker and lectures over 200 times each year around the globe.
He lectures 200 times each year around the globe. I just see him on his YouTube channel. Where does he lecture around the globe?
In countries like North America, South America, Europe, and Israel. He's also the author of the book, Let's Get Biblical. Why doesn't Judaism accept the Christian Messiah? And he's a frequent guest on television and radio shows. He has vast knowledge of topics such as anti Semitism, Holocaust revisionism, Jewish and Christian history, and
If he has vast knowledge of topics like anti Semitism, he shouldn't be talking to you.
of course, Christian missionaries. So he has had numerous interviews on radio and television over the years, and he continues to teach thousands, bringing back many to Judaism. And our next guest is Jerome.
Now, listen carefully, folks. Jerome. Now, Jerome is supposed to be a Christian who's supposed to be debating, quote unquote, debating Tovia Singer in this interview.
Now, Jerome needs no introduction on this show, but for those of you that are just tuning into my show, Jerome Anto is a practicing Christian
Practicing Christian. She's saying he's a practicing Christian. Just hear that. I'll just play it again.
from India and Judaism. And our next guest is Jerome. Now, Jerome needs no introduction on this show, but for those of you that are just tuning into my show, Jerome Anto is a practicing Christian from India.
Practicing Christian. Okay. Practicing Christian.
And founder of Hindustani Christians, a group of Indian nationalist Christians. Jerome
Oh, Hindustani Christians. Okay, fine. But a group of Indian nationalist Christians. What does that mean? I really don't get it. Indian nationalist Christians.
as we all know, is dedicated in countering the efforts of church in general and radical Christian evangelicals in particular.
Jerome counters radical Christian evangelicals in particular. Tell me, man, all the Indians in the chat, John, Ahmed Khani, Siddharth, tell me, have you come across any radical Christian evangelical in India? Do they even exist? No, they don't exist. Uh, and Jerome is countering radical Christian evangelicals in particular. If Jerome is a practical Christian, why, I mean, a practicing Christian, why would he even care about radical Christian evangelicals? Come on, man. Even we guys who live in the West, we have seen radical Christian evangelicals preach on the streets. Do we give a damn about them? No, we just let them do their thing. Is Jerome even a Christian?
Who target the gullible Hindus for conversion.
Who target the gullible Hindus for conversion. Oh, yeah, the rice bag converts, all this nonsense.
Jerome has been one of the most provocative, powerful, and vocal Indian Christian
Provocative, powerful, and vocal Indian Christians
against the business called conversion.
against the business called conversion. So, conversion is a business. I didn't know conversion was a business. Seriously. But I mean, she does have a fair point in some cases. Like if you're talking about prosperity gospels and some kind of these cult groups, like say Jehovah's Witnesses and things like that, then yeah, conversion can be a business sometimes. And it is regardless of religion. Okay. Oh, yeah. Jerome could be claiming to be a Christian as a publicity stunt, a bit like Canadian Catholic. Yeah, you could be onto something. Catholic Crusader. Let's see. And speaking of Canadian Catholic, Lord willing, in tomorrow's expose of Canadian Catholic, I might mention Tovia Singer. I might.
His efforts of late has been to educate the Hindus on this conspiracy called churchianity.
Churchianity. Again, he's talking about evangelical churchianity and certain fringe groups of evangelicals selling prosperity gospels and things like that. He's not targeting mainstream Christianity. Yeah, servant of Jesus Christ. He's an ex-Hindu who's become a Christian. And yeah, I can testify to that. Like, even I was in a Christian school in India, and none of us were converting the Hindus. In fact, the Christians in that Christian school just made up less than 20%, 20% of the students there. And we even have more non-Christian teachers than Christian teachers within Christian schools in India. I don't know what this Esther is smoking, this cow worshipper, or rather this cow, what's she smoking?
So, welcome to the talk, Rabbi Singer and Jerome.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Rabbi,
Here he's saying namaste, thank you. So getting Tovia Singer for them apparently seems to be a big thing, as if he's a big celebrity or something. Seriously.
yesterday I was actually watching you on a podcast called Myth Vision with Dr. Robert Price.
Myth Vision, it's an atheist channel. That guy's a militant atheist. And then on top of that, he's with Robert Price, who's a Christ myther on top of that, who thinks he's a historian. Dr. Robert Price, I don't know. He's a guy who just doesn't even believe that Jesus even existed, and it's just a fabricated myth. And yeah, again, I don't know why this guy Canadian Catholics keeps coming in my head. He's just obsessed with Robert Price. Anyway, I don't want to digress from the topic.
And you were saying something like, oh, so this is how you earn your living? Prepare 2 or 3 minutes something and just let it roll. And this is how you earn your living. So just to tell you, that's exactly what I'm going to do today. So, in fact,
Tovia Singer smile, so creepy. What are you thinking, Tovia? Seriously.
I haven't even prepared the 2 to 3 minutes something today. I haven't even spent that kind of time before coming to the show. In fact, what I'm going to do is pitch the two of you against each.
Now listen, she wants to pit Jerome against Tovia Singer. So there's going to be a debate between them. Since Jerome is a practicing Christian and Tovia Singer is a rabbinic Jew, a counter missionary. So she's going to have them debate each other, okay? This is going to be a debate, guys.
Each other and let you fight, and I'll sit back and enjoy the brawl.
So she'll sit back and she'll enjoy the brawl. So both of them are just going to sit and fight. Yeah, Barantas, there's no such thing as a nationalist Christian. That's all nonsense. I'll sit back and enjoy the brawl. So this guy is going to have a debate with Tovia Singer. Now let's see how fun this debate is.
Oh, I deeply appreciate
I'm just
that.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
You have no idea how happy that makes me.
Oh, really?
that-
Okay. So
Because
you are the fighter guy, huh?
Israel's such a large country, such a large democracy, and India is such a tiny country. So, of course, that gives me an enormous advantage. After all, you have lakes that are bigger than our country. So I really, really am very grateful for that honor and distinction. Why don't you just set the whole Indian country against me? No, I appreciate that very much. And then we'll move on to
But
smaller things
also-
like China. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Size of the country doesn't matter, because I've seen you in several of your shows, your debates with such apologists like William Lane.
That debate with William Lane Craig, I can't even get that footage. I just have a 10 or 15-minute footage, and it's not even the complete footage. Please mention his debate with Dr. Michael Brown. She'll never say that. Where he got destroyed. Tovia Singer got completely destroyed.
Craig Evans, and people like that. So
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, even if
And trust me, having a theological debate with William Lane Craig, theology isn't William Lane Craig's forte, to be really honest. He could probably have a ball game with atheists and things like that, but when it comes to theology, no, that's not his forte.
yes, Israel is not even as big as the largest lake of India, Rabbi Tovia Singer is indeed big fighter.
Yeah.
So
A big fighter. He's more of a big coward who hides behind Muslims, attacks Christianity.
I'll give that to you. But
Yeah.
what I'm really going to do is I will let the two of you talk
Mhm.
because the kind of work that you are doing is what connects you both. So
The kind of work that you are doing is what connects you both. So I thought this was supposed to be a debate. Now she's just trying to say the kind of work they are both doing. So like Tovia Singer, he's a counter missionary, and this guy is also claiming to be a counter missionary in India, but says he's a practicing Catholic. I just don't get this logic.
I'm sure Jerome has prepared little more than just 2 or 3 minutes something for you. So we'll
Sure.
just let it rolling.
Sure.
So Jerome,
Okay, so the debate between the two of them is going to start. I don't know what they are going to debate about.
I want you to open the talk.
First of all, thank you so much for arranging this talk. And Rabbi, I am ever grateful to you for coming over the show. I have been wanting to talk to you for the last 1 year. So, because I've been going through what Israel has gone through over the years, over the thousands of years, and I've seen my own country going through a similar situation. So my first question is, Rabbi, I would like to know what are the challenges that Israel has gone through.
Huh? I thought this was supposed to be a debate. That's what Esther was saying. This was supposed to be a debate. She kept saying it on and on again. These two are going to brawl, but instead it's just an interview. It's not a debate. I'm so disappointed, seriously. And he's just asking about Israel's challenges. I thought he was going to have a debate with Tovia Singer. What the heck? I just don't get it.
In the last few years, few decades, ever since 1948 when Israel was formed, and how the evangelicals have somehow tried to seep in into Israel and been able to uh, uh, remove the carpet from the feet. So I wonder what kind of challenges has Israel gone through.
Okay. So
So he's talking about the evangelical missionaries coming over there. Personally speaking, I have mixed views about the evangelicalism going on in Israel because even they also have their vested interests, to be really honest. So just to be fair with Tovia, he does make a fair point over here, but then that's not really the big picture.
first of all, Israel and India are celebrating 29 years of diplomatic relations. And in recent years, Israel and India are enjoying a very, very close relationship. But I technologically, economically, on many, many fronts, India and Israel also have a lot of common interests. But I confess to you that I'm not a diplomat. I don't represent the government. I'm a rabbi.
Well, right now I can see you really being very diplomatic with people born out of an anti-Semitic organization such as the RSS and the Hindu nationalist movement. Why are you being so diplomatic, Tovia? These are the people which hate the Jewish nation. They were born due to anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic sentiments. Seriously. And why are you being so diplomatic with the Muslims when you want to destroy Christianity? How can you say you're not a diplomat, man? You're doing such a good job when it comes to diplomacy, going against people whom you shouldn't be agreeing with, but bashing Christianity, banding together with them. I really don't get it. You should win the Nobel Prize for diplomacy.
I'm a theologian, so that's the area that I can focus on very easily with you. As it turns out, Israel has a complex relationship with evangelical Christians. For 2,000 years, the church regarded the Jewish people as a people who once were chosen by God, who had a unique covenant with the Almighty, but the church insisted that that covenant was abrogated, was destroyed, and the church has superseded Israel. The church has replaced Israel. In fact,
Okay, now we need to be very careful over here. Now, Tovia Singer is talking about something called as replacement theology. Okay, I'll just come to Notepad just to, anyway, just go to format, font, make it a little bit bigger, just to give you an insight. Size 20. So he's talking about replacement theology, or say covenant theology. Now, this is not the majority position in Christianity, okay? And certainly not a position within the apostolic churches. It's just some sects of Protestantism, not all sects, some sects. Okay, so he's just talking about that. So Tovia at this stage, he's not really refuting Christianity. He's just refuting some subsect of Christianity or some views which some Christians hold, which unfortunately is overtly represented, especially by the evangelicals, rather a subset of evangelicals who go to Israel to proselytize.
theology is called replacement theology, and the church is the new Israel. It's also
The church is the new Israel. Yes, that's true.
called covenant theology. And the Jews have lost all their blessings. And Augustine takes us further in his work called The City of God.
I need to see where he's quoting from. City of God is Augustine's magnum opus. There are about 20 odd books in there. You can read it for free on New Advent. I'm still have to go through this to just see from which quote, where he's quoting this from and what really is the context. Because you know this guy, he's a very slippery clown. No wonder even Muslims hold him in great reverence. He's a prophet for them, man. He's a greater prophet for Muslims as compared to even Bart Ehrman.
His magnum opus, that in fact the reason why Jews are around altogether is so that people see the low state of the Jewish people, see their deplorable position in society, and realize as a living memorial of what happened to the people who were responsible for killing Jesus. And Augustine had good reason to think that way. It's because the Christian Bible portrays the Jews exactly that way. And that's
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Here he is just accusing the church of anti-Semitism. But however, to be fair with Tovia, some of the magisterial reformers were anti-Semitic. Martin Luther, for example, was anti-Semitic. All right. There were certain episodes of anti-Semitism within the history of the church, but as a whole, speaking, like we are not really anti-Semitic. Yeah, he's from the RSS, man.
how not just the Roman Catholic Church believed and espoused, but that's how the Orthodox Church believed, and
the Orthodox Church believes it, the Roman Catholic Church believes it. What nonsense is this, man? Seriously?
earliest reformers were all virulent anti-Semites. From
I could say that about Martin Luther and maybe John Calvin, but I'm not sure about the others.
Luther and Calvin and Bucer, they all were and they all believe this. But something dramatically changed in the church in the 19th century, where there's a man, his name was John Nelson Darby, had a new view. And the new view is that the Jewish people have a promise from God that cannot be undone, cannot be abrogated. And in fact, God still has a covenant with the Jewish people, and the Jews must return to the land of Israel.
Okay, now Tovia straw man about the Christian Bible. Okay, so let's go to Romans. First of all, let me just get rid of Tovia's straw man. Okay, Israel's rejection is not total. He's saying that the Christian Bible portrays the Jews in a very negative light. This is New Testament, Paul. So Israel's rejection is not total. If I say that, then has God cast away his people? This is Paul writing to the Romans. Certainly not. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin. Thanks for sharing the link there, then, Dragana. For God has not cast away his people whom he foreknew. Or do you not know what the scripture says of Elijah, how he pleads with God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed your prophets and torn down your altars, and I alone am left, and they seek my life. But what does the divine response say to him? I have preserved for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal, to Baal or Baal. Even so, then, at this present time, there is not a remnant according to the election of grace. And if by grace, then it is no longer of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. But it is of works. It is no longer grace. Otherwise, work is no longer work. Okay, now here comes the main part. What then? Israel has not obtained what it seeks, but the elect have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Just as it is written, God has given them, that is the Jews, a spirit of stupor, eyes that should not see, and ears that they should not hear to this very day. So this is again coming from Isaiah 6. Okay. And even Jesus quotes this in the Gospels. And David says, let their table become a snare and the trap a stumbling block and a recompense to them. Let their eyes be darkened so that they do not see and bow down before their back always. So the Jews are in a state of spiritual blindness. Now let's come back. Israel's rejection is not final. I say that when they have stumbled, that they should fall, certainly not. But through their fall, to provoke them to jealousy, salvation has come to their Gentiles. Now, if their fall is riches for the world and their failure riches for the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? So again, Paul is talking about the Jews. So what Paul is saying, if the fall of the Jews by crucifying Christ and rejecting his followers is riches for the world, that is the conversion of Gentiles coming to God, the God of Israel. If the failure of the Jews bring about such riches for the world, then just imagine how much would it be for the Jews coming to the fullness of faith being for the world. For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am an apostle to the Gentiles, I magnify my ministry. If by any means I may provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh and save some of them, here he goes. For if by their being cast away is the reconciling of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy, and if the root is holy, so are the branches. Okay. Now he's talking specifically to us, that is the Gentiles. He's talking to the Romans, but specifically to us, the Gentile converts, the Gentiles. Okay. And if some of the branches were broken off from the tree, and you being a wild olive tree, so Paul is calling us Gentiles a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and fatness of the olive tree. So suppose he's saying that the faith is the olive tree, and the Jews are the natural branches which grow from that olive tree, whereas we are branches of a wild olive tree which have artificially been grafted onto this one. So that's how Paul is comparing us. But if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. There you go, the root. That's Christ. If you say then branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. So again, Paul is saying to the Gentile believers, that is to the church or the Gentile church, that we should never boast that the Jews were broken off, that we might be that replace him. So, see, this verse itself refutes this so called replacement theology, and there is Tovia Singer straw manning the New Testament. Well said, because of unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by faith. Do not be proud, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, that is the Jews, he may not spare you either, because we are the unnatural branches. There you go. Therefore, consider the goodness and severity of God on those who fell, severity, but towards you, goodness. If you continue in his goodness, remember this. Otherwise, you also will be cut off. Remember this. If we continue to live as God tells us to do, following his word, living a life which is acceptable to God, we will continue to be in the branches, otherwise, we will be cut off. And now he's talking of the Jews. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, he's saying that will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. So if the Jew repents, follows Christ, they will be grafted in because it's possible with God. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a cultivated olive tree, that is the tree from which the Jews base their faith on, how much more will these who are natural branches be grafted in easily into their own olive tree? There you go. Tovia Singer's lie here just got refuted.
He was,
I'll just play it again.
but something dramatic of the Jewish people. In fact, theology is called replacement theology,
See,
and the church is the new Israel. It's also called covenant theology. And the Jews have lost all their blessings. And Augustine takes us further in his work called the Christian Movement, comprises about 1/5, 20% of the United States returned to the land of Israel. He
okay.
was born in England and he preached in the United States. He had a new view. And the new view,
So he's talking about this other guy in the 19th century. Now, remember, in the 19th century, we had the Christian Restorationist movement. So some people started saying things like the Protestant Reformation failed, the Catholic Church has failed. Yeah, sure. You might have to put some speakers on EMB because I did have decent volume. I think it could just be Tovia's voice actually. I'll try to increase it as much as I can. So this guy, John Nelson Darby, he's saying he had a new view.
is that the Jewish people have a promise from God that cannot be undone, cannot be abrogated.
It's not a new view, man. I just read it out to you from Romans 11.
And in fact, God still has a covenant with the Jewish people, and the Jews must return to the land of Israel. He was born in England and he preached in the United States, and his ideas were spread by very famous people like Cyrus Schofield, Moody, and others. As it turns out, today, the evangelical Christian movement comprises about 1/5, 20% of the United States, largest voting bloc, and they're very, very pro-Israel, very pro-Israel. There's only one catch because there's no free lunch, and the catch is that they are very pro-Israel, but they also are very committed to converting the Jewish people to Christianity. It is, in fact, these very same people who are very pro-Israel, and you have these kinds of people in India, and you have these
Pro people in India, really. I wonder how many missionaries are there in India who are very pro-Israel. Name me one. Name me 5.
sort of people in the Far East, where I used to be a rabbi in Indonesia. It is these people who have this view who are the most committed to converting the Jews to Christianity. To our people, this is an existential threat, and therefore it's
Let me just rephrase that again. His voice has suddenly grown a bit soft.
people in the Far East, where I used to be a rabbi in Indonesia.
Okay, now hear the sentence, guys. Again, hear the sentence again.
It is these people who have this view who are the most committed to converting the Jews to Christianity.
Okay, so these people convert the Jews to Christianity. Now he's calling them a threat.
To our people, this is an existential threat.
To an existential threat. What are you smoking, Tovia singer? Now that's one thing. Now he's talking about the evangelicals converting Jews, but let me tell you one thing. 80 to 90% of Jews on planet Earth, 80 to 90% of them are atheists. They are secular. Forget Christianity, forget Judaism. If you're going to Israel, 30 to 40% of them are secular. They're having things like gay parades and all these kinds of things happening in Israel. You should be worried more about atheism and secularism and woke culture growing in Israel than Christianity. Seriously, man. I don't know what you're smoking. That Christians are a threat to your people.
And therefore, it's vital for us to respond to these very serious charges that are made against the Jewish faith.
What serious charges?
And my role is to respond to very, very serious accusations against Judaism.
To respond to very, very serious accusations against Judaism. Yeah. Like your YouTube channel, you sit over there, and when Christian debaters ask you for a debate, whether it's Michael Brown or somebody who could challenge you for a debate, someone who knows Hebrew, or even some Messianic Jew who knows Hebrew, like from One for Israel ministry, nah, you just chicken out. Or you don't respond to them. Why are you so scared, Tovia?
Because while on one hand, these evangelical Christians are very pro-Israel, meaning for the country, and they are very supportive in every way, economically, of the state of Israel. On the other hand, they are very committed to evangelizing and destroying the Jewish faith.
Destroying the Jewish faith. Really, destroying the Jewish faith. Here you go. You guys can't read it. Secularism in Israel. I'll just increase the size. Separation of religion, differences in the Jewish population. Secular Jews make up about 41.4% of the Jewish population, atheists in Israel, followed by the traditional Jews, which account for 38.5%. That's Tovia Singer's party, with the remaining 40% populated by the Orthodox and ultra Orthodox. So now those are the extreme Jews. In Israel, now these are heretical movements. The reform and conservative movements are estimated to take up 7.6% of the Jewish population. It's not Tovia Singer's movement of, say, ultra Orthodox Judaism. Okay. So this is a problem, and I don't know what's he talking about. Coming back. Christianity isn't a threat, man. See, in terms of religiosity, I'll just increase this thing a bit. Jews aged 20 and over 44% define themselves as secular, 27% define themselves as traditional, 12% as traditionally observant, 9% as orthodox, and 8% as ultra orthodox. By the way, when Jews are saying that they are traditional and traditionally observant, that doesn't mean that they actually follow God. They are just cultural Jews, like how we have cultural Christians who keep Christian festivals and things like that, but would rarely attend church service and things. They're just cultural Jews. That's about it. Okay? So they're just following some Jewish customs and Jewish laws, but not necessarily worshipping a God. Where Tovia Singer falls in is this category over here. And if you're talking about Christianity, what is it? Less than 5%, 3%, 2%? Messianic Judaism? Messianic Judaism doesn't even make up 1% of Israel's population, by the way. just to be clear with facts and figures. I don't know what this guy is smoking.
And that's why I have to respond to their very, very aggressive programs
Very, very aggressive programs. Seriously, very, very aggressive
to
programs.
evangelize the Jewish people.
So, Rabbi, my next
This guy, so-called Christian, he is supposed to debate Tovia Singer, instead he's asking him questions just to attack Christianity.
question to you is the population of Christians in India is just 2%, suppose 2%. And I'm sure it is a similar such percentage in Israel as well. But how come they are so powerful? How are they so powerful? That's my question.
So,
how are they powerful? Seriously, what kind of a stupid question is that? How are they powerful? Come on, man. In India, 2%. Do you see any Indian Christians in top political positions? No. I could argue that some of them are influential, but then the same could go for Hindus, the same could go for Muslims. In fact, we have so many Muslim politicians in India, especially in North India. What nonsense is that? Seriously.
the question is, how are Christians so influential?
Yes.
In both of our countries.
Yeah, because in India, though they say the percentage is small, they are able to influence policies, arm twist government.
Huh? Christians in India are able to influence government policies. Wow. What's this guy smoking? Seriously. Seriously.
And they can do the way they want to. And I'm sure you had such experiences in Israel.
Let me just tell you this. So it's really here a very, very different, completely different situation.
This guy just told a blatant lie. This Jerome, so-called Christian, who is supposed to be debating with Tovia Singer in this video.
What's going on in Asia, you're in South Asia or in Southeast Asia, is that just Christians in general are in high places of government and are very successful economically, and as a result, there's a lot of influence. The same thing was in Indonesia.
Are there any Indonesians here? Tell me how many Christians are in power in Indonesia. If there are any Indonesians watching this channel, watching this video afterwards, it's around the 12-minute mark, 12-minute 50-second mark of Tovia's video. Just please take a note of that. Okay. Of late, there was an Indonesian man who had converted to Christianity, a Muslim man, and he's put in prison. Just talks about what kind of influence they have, and are there any Christian politicians or rich people, influential people in Indonesia trying to get that man out? No. What nonsense is this guy talking about? Seriously.
Asia is the largest Muslim country in the world, 240 million Muslims. But you can be sure that the Christians, roughly about 30 million, have an enormous influence because economically they're doing very well. I also confess to you again, I'm a rabbi, I'm a theologian. I'm not really an expert in the makeup of the Indian government and the influence that powerful people have in your country, but I suspect it's probably the same. But that's not my area of expertise. Here in Israel, it's a little different because we're really surrounded by countries that are less than friendly. Israel is surrounded by, imagine having.
You're surrounded by countries, by Muslim countries, yet I don't understand why do Muslims look up to you as a very good apologist and almost like a Muslim apologist? And why do you collaborate with these doxers like Ijaz Ahmed to bash Christianity? I just don't get it, seriously. Seriously.
having, Lebanon in the north and Iran's proxy, Hezbollah there. And then you have Syria. I don't know.
FYI, he's talking to a person who's affiliated with the Hindu right wing right now. And just to let you know, Iran has good relations with India. Okay, Iran's got good relations with India, trade relations.
I need to tell you about Syria. And then Israel has a relationship with Jordan, has sort of a cold peace with Jordan. But if you go further east, you hit Iraq and Iran, and there's a troublesome relationship there. So Israel has always felt under siege. The Jewish people has felt under siege for good reason. And in fact, the Jewish state emerged out of the ashes of the Holocaust. So as a result of that, Israel does cherish any friend they can find. It should be noted that 35 years ago, Israel didn't have a relationship with India, or had a horrible relationship with India. It was a nightmare. India, we're going back a generation ago, we used to host the large conferences on third world countries, and it was basically it was like target shooting. Israel was under attack constantly. Israel and India today are the closest of friends, but alliances change. Here in Israel, there is a feeling that it is evangelical Christians that are Israel's best friends, and I'm very grateful for their support for Israel, but not at any price. I'm not willing to have my family, my people, my nation spiritually destroyed.
Oh, really? Spiritually destroyed by evangelical Christians, even if they could be prosperity preachers or not preaching the right kind of theology or having personal intentions of, giving Israel money, supporting them in exchange of, converting people. Okay. But then, I don't know, really, is that your biggest problem, Tovia? Is that your biggest problem? Is that biggest Israel spiritual problem? Let's have a look. Gay parades. Yeah, see, gay prides events, Friday 10th June, Israel. This is what's happening in Israel. See, 8th June, 6th June, Tel Aviv, the capital. Pride parade, 10th June. Search more events. Seriously, Tovia, do you support all this? I guess you do, because you see, Christianity is a problem, not all the secular woke nonsense, which has already taken over your country. Pride Week events 2022. They are having Pride Week. Tens of thousands attend Pride Parade in Israel's Tel Aviv last year. Gay Pride Month, the Times of Israel. Seriously.
By these evangelicals, because
Let's read that again.
Israel's best friends, and I'm very grateful for their support for Israel, but not at any price. I'm not willing to have my family, my people, my nation spiritually destroyed by these evangelicals.
Spiritually destroyed by these evangelicals. You have another problem in your backyard, man. And they are already spiritually destroyed, just as you are.
Because they support American military support of Israel. That's not a price that we're willing to pay. So these evangelicals are very, very well connected here, not because of finances as much as you would find in the East, but they're very well connected to the government because they're very close to Washington. And as a result, they had just enormous amount of influence here in Israel. And thank God I have been here in Israel for a year and a half and have changed the map here. So their influence is now receding, and Israelis are becoming more and more aware of the danger that these missionaries pose.
It's not Israel as a state which is becoming more and more aware. It's just a certain section of the ultra Orthodox Jews who are kind of linked politically with the ruling party, with Netanyahu, who are concerned with these evangelical missionaries. But if you want to tell them to stop atheism and secularism and all these things, or even Abdulism for that matter, nah, nothing. It's just Christianity. You have a problem with Christianity.
Yes, we in India face a similar or slightly worse situation because
A worse situation, and this guy is supposed quote unquote Christian, and now just look at the lies he's spewing.
we were ruled by the Europeans for almost 500 odd years, and we are going to reach 100 years of independence in the next 20 years, and there's a scare that uh, the we are going back to what we were prior independence.
There are still
There's a scare that we are going back to what we were prior independence. Seriously, what scare, man? What are you guys so scared of? People in India are also like kind of getting more secular if you're discounting the Hindu right wing. I don't know what the scare is.
so many, especially Christians, that say that colonizing of India was a great thing.
I would no, not many Christians really say that colonizing India was a great thing. Actually, the colonists which had come to India, which is the East India Company from Britain, they had their own goals. After that, the British Crown actually took over. And after the British Crown took over, there was still discontent among the Indians over there. That resulted in a kind of an uprising, but which was crushed sometime in the 19th century. After that, you know what happened? The social reforms which took place in India, they happened due to Christian missionaries. Most of the social reformers in India, they were influenced by Christian missionaries to start schools and even to teach women for women's education, by the way. They were influenced by Christian missionaries, not by the colonists, not by imperial colonism, not by the British Crown, but just by Christian missionaries, and you could say even the Catholic Church. I don't know what the heck are you yakking about? Seriously. You would not have been reading or writing today if it weren't for this reformer, for this Indian reformer. I'll just read his name. His name is Jyotirao Phule. So this is an Indian reformer. He's the guy who pioneered women's education in India. See, he and his wife Savitribai Phule were pioneers of women's education in India. Here you go. And he was actually thrown out of his house for educating his wife. His wife became the first women teacher in India, and he was influenced a lot by Christian missionaries. I'm not sure if Wikipedia has edited this. Yeah. He visited a girls' school in Ahmednagar run by Christian missionaries when he was age 21, and he bought this over there. And there were other practices in India, like, say, child marriage, which also happens in Abdulism. It still happens now in traditional families. That got abolished. Okay, like 6 or 7 years old girls marrying adult men, which also happens, unfortunately, or in Abdulism as well. Same demonic stuff, rebranded as another religion. Yeah, sati, that is the practice of a widow committing suicide. Okay, after her husband dies, so a widow has to end up burning herself in the fire. And there's also another thing called as prohibition of widows from remarriage. If they are not committing sati, they have to live a very much an ostracized life. They were not allowed to remarry at all. So it was that part. It was really that part. I don't know what this cow is talking about here, seriously.
because there are even statements put out something to the effect that the reason we are wearing clothes today is because of the missionaries or the colonizers.
Absolutely.
Not just English medium schools or hospitals.
Absolutely.
The very
Absolutely.
reason that we are wearing clothes is because we were colonized at one time. So those are the kind of statements that are peddled.
Yeah.
You're just throwing blanket statements over there and rhetoric. It's the same kind of nonsense and rhetoric people throw and myths people have about the things like the Council of Nicaea, for instance. These are all blanket statements. Please cite your sources.
And that's what we've been carrying on our shoulders, which is not true, because the Indian civilization also is a very old civilization, and it has stood the onslaught of Christianity and Islam.
Stood the onslaught of Christianity and Islam. Oh my gosh. Fine, Islam did come over there, but Christianity, please, that's a different story. It stood the onslaught of Christianity and Islam, right? Christianity did not begin in India because of the British coming here or because of the Portuguese coming here. Christianity began in India, in South India, in the first century by Saint Thomas, the apostle, who was martyred, stabbed with a spear on a mountain by your forefathers. Keep that in mind. Also, there are traditions which say that Saint Bartholomew or Saint Nathaniel had also come to India at one point and had evangelized the church.
For many years. So, keeping that aside, my next question is this: is it important to convert to Christianity to get salvation?
Now, this is important. This is really important. Now, you just see how Tovia just lies. Just lies.
Because that's exactly is what is being preached to the gullible Hindus, saying that you're going to be damned if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, if you don't get baptized.
Yeah, so it's really good to go to heaven. The idea is very attractive. What makes the evangelical Christian message so dangerous is what they're saying is if you want to be healthy, smoke cigarettes. That means
You have to be healthy, then you smoke cigarettes. That's what they say if you want to be baptized and convert as a Christian.
that means the idea of going.
And remember, this was supposed to be a debate between this Jerome guy and Tovia Singer, and Jerome was supposed to be an Indian nationalist, quote unquote Christian. Instead, he's just giving Tovia incentive to attack Christianity by his questions. Seriously.
Going to heaven or something really terrific happening after you die, that's great. That's the good part. The problem is they're selling a counterfeit message. They're telling people if you want to be healthy, eat a lot of fatty foods.
Just look at yourself, man. Eat a lot of fatty foods. Just look at yourself. I mean, you should follow your own advice. Seriously, actually, you should follow that advice, Tovia Singer. I can see that you are actually implementing it quite well.
If you want to be healthy, take drugs. It's the worst possible advice someone could be given. Now, as it turns out, people are very concerned about the afterlife. They are. People are afraid of dying, petrified, and they don't know what happens on the other side of the grave. And it's the claim of going.
Now listen. Now listen. Now listen to these lies which are coming there from Takya Swinger. He's not Tovia Singer, he's Takya Swinger.
To heaven is fantastic for a false religion.
He's calling Christianity a false religion again. Hey, you're talking to a Hindu there. Is Hinduism not more of a false religion? They worship the calf, the golden calf. Seriously, why are you coming together with the calf worshipper?
Because it's unfalsifiable. It can't be tested. You can't examine it. You can't go to a cemetery, dig up dead people, and ask them what happened to you. So it's exploiting a fear that people have what happens after you die, and then you can't test out if it's going to deliver. So this is a major problem. In contrast, in the Torah, in the Jewish Bible, there's never a
In the Torah, the Jewish Bible, he's talking about the Tanakh, the Old Testament. He's talking about the Old Testament. Now look at his lie about the Old Testament.
threat of going to hell.
There's never a threat of going to hell. Really? Really? What is Gehenna?
And never a promise going to heaven.
And never a promise going to heaven. Really? Really? Daniel 12, New King James. Prophecy of the end of time. At that time, Michael shall stand up, that is Saint Michael, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of the people, and there shall be a time of trouble, as such saying never as a nation. So it's talking about the end times. Here. See, even to that time, and at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book, listen, written in the book of life, and many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake the resurrection, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting covenant, heaven and hell after the resurrection. Get lost, Tovia, Old Testament, Daniel 12. It's as explicit. There are other places in the Bible where I can show this in the Old Testament, but this is as explicit as it gets. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament. Firmament, that's to like describe heaven, God's firmament, God's throne. And those who turn away, turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Liar. Liar. Liar.
There is such a place. There is an afterlife and a resurrection, and it's mentioned very, very briefly. But the God of Israel says that if you're not loyal to me, it's going to stop raining. And food is not going to grow.
Please stop talking about temporal punishments which God brought on Israel and other nations in the Old Testament for not following his covenant, about what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah, or what could happen to Nineveh, and how people of Israel were punished for their sins time and again. Don't talk all this nonsense about the temporal punishments on this side. Whereas Daniel 12, it's not talking about rain, it's talking about some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. Hell.
Your land is not going to be fertile. You'll go into exile. I'll bring you back. So if you're God and you're writing scripture, you're not going to appeal to something that happens after you die, because after you die, it's too late to repent. After you die and you see hell, then what good is it? You can't do anything any longer. But if I say, look, if you smoke cigarettes, so what's going to happen is you're going to start coughing. You're going to feel very, very sick. You're not going to be able to walk anymore. You're going to be out of breath. And that's what happens to people. They start feeling really bad. And you know what they do? They quit smoking. They quit doing drugs. And you know what?
What nonsense are you talking about, man? If you're an addict or a smoker or an alcoholic, it's really difficult for you to quit unless you're into some kind of a program like Alcoholics Anonymous or some kind of rehab programs or that like. Really? What nonsense are you talking about? You might feel bad after you've taken the thing and after you've gotten the high, but after a while you'll again start craving for it. You won't quit just like that. You won't quit cold turkey. You'll only be able to quit or get rid of it over rehab programs, and sometimes it's multiple rehabs. What a bad analogy you're drawing, man.
What happens? They feel a lot better. So I want to just contrast the Christianity with my faith. And that is that
Your faith is not Judaism. Your faith is Rabbinic Judaism. It's not covenantal Judaism.
Christianity is promising heaven or hell. This is in no way matches any message found in the Hebrew Bible, which they claim they believe in. There's no threat like that.
No threat like that. What is this? Daniel 12 verses 1 to 2? I don't know. Okay, you'd say that maybe we have mistranslated it incorrectly. Okay, fine. Let's have a look at Daniel 12. What's that site called, man? This is your Masoretic manuscripts, by the way. There you go. There's verse 12. And many in the book, that is the book of life written, who is found, everyone to life, these shall awaken the dust of the earth of those who sleep, everlasting, and contempt to shame, and those everlasting. Yeah. Contempt to shame, the others. So it's again talking about heaven and hell and the final judgment. And this is the Masoretic manuscript, man. What you guys use.
That the resurrection is mentioned, but it's not as a threat. Why? How would you threaten someone about something that you can't test, you can't see? The Torah.
Likewise, how can you promise someone about something you can't test or you can't see? How can you promise heaven when you can't test it and you can't see it? Flawed logic, seriously. Abdul logic.
Was written by God, and therefore God really can control the weather. He really can control the fertility of the ground. He really is in control of history, and that's what you find in the Jewish scriptures. And what people really ought to do is, when they're confronted with these claims by evangelical fundamentalist Christians, the way to see through it theologically is to compare it to what you find in the Jewish Bible. And what you discover is that the church has altered the Jewish Bible, changed it, manipulated it.
Liar, the church has altered the Jewish Bible, changed it, and manipulated it. You guys are the ones who tampered with the Bible and in your Masoretic texts and altered it. Not us. And we have archaeological evidence from the Dead Sea Scrolls to prove that the Septuagint and the Hebrew in the Dead Sea Scrolls is much closer to the Catholic Bible and say the Orthodox Bibles today as compared to what you guys are using, the Masoretic texts.
The text to make it appear Christological. One other
to make it appear Christological, you are the guys who put vowels over there in the wrong places.
very serious problem is that no Christian, almost no Christian, learns Hebrew, certainly not as a child. None. In India, the only Christian that can.
Tell me, how many Jews do you know learn Hebrew and are able to read and write the Torah in Hebrew? How many Jews? No, none, except maybe your rabbis. Really, a really poor analogy, man. Really poor analogy. Same thing can be said about Hindus. How many Hindus do you know who know how to read their scripture in Sanskrit? I mean, they could read their scripture in Sanskrit, but they would not be able to understand it one bit. It'll just be their priests and their scholars and clergy taking care of all these things.
Speak Hebrew is a professor at a university. That's it. That's it. That means if you go to the.
And about your claim that we changed the Bible, okay, now as a Catholic, with respect to the Catholic Church, our Bible, the Latin Vulgate, was compiled by Saint Jerome under the tutelage of rabbis, under the tutelage of rabbis, by the way. And our Bible, which is the Old Testament of the Latin Vulgate, it's over 80%. It corresponds with the Septuagint, and it also closely resembles the Hebrew in the Dead Sea Scrolls as compared to the Hebrew in the Masoretic. And Jerome had written sometime around 400 AD, and the surviving Masoretic manuscripts, which you guys use, they date to around 800 or 900 AD, about maybe one or two generations later, with your alterations in it. You want proof? Your own Jewish virtual library, your own Jewish websites praise Jerome. They praise Jerome. I'll just show it to you. Just a second. So there is Jewish virtual library. I'll just a minute. I'll just send you guys the link. Give me a second. Here you go. And here's the article. In case if you can see it, I've just dropped the link in the chat. So this is Saint Jerome, Latin church father, born to Christian parents in Stridon, Dalmatia, and sent by them to study in Rome. In Gaul, where he lived a life of pleasure after completing his studies, he was overcome by thoughts of repentance. He decided to pursue an ascetic life and joined a group of ascetics in Aquila. In 374, he decided to go to Jerusalem, the land of the Jews. But on his way, he became ill in Antioch and stayed there. For 3 years, he lived the life of a hermit in the desert of Chalcis. There he met an apostate Jew and with his help began to learn Hebrew. He then returned to Antioch where he was ordained a priest. He proceeded from there to Constantinople where he met Gregory of Nazianzus, another church father, and heard his discourses on the exegesis of Bible. From 382 to 385, he lived in Rome and served as secretary to Pope Damascus I. During his stay in Constantinople, he was engaged in translating the Chronicon of Eusebius in Latin, as well as supplementing it and lengthening the cover from the 20. Okay, I'll just skip this sentence. Yeah, here we go. Now, this is the part which is this. In 386, Jerome settled in Bethlehem, where he directed a monastery and devoted his time to study. He obtained money to found the monastery from one of his female followers in Rome, Paula, who traveled with several friends to Bethlehem, where she founded 3 nunneries. In Bethlehem, Jerome continued a study of the Jewish language, which he had previously studied in Syria, that is in Antioch, in Bethlehem. And who was he studying the Hebrew language from? From the Jews. Who was he studying the Old Testament from? From the rabbis. Why was he able to produce such a fine translation of the Bible of the Old Testament from the rabbis? I don't know what you're smoking, Tovia Singer. Seriously. Seriously. He had several Jewish teachers. One came from Lydda, and the second, named Bar Hanina, came from Tiberias. Out of the fear of Jews there, Jerome had several Jewish teachers. Okay. Out of the fear of the Jews, the latter was sometimes compelled, and according to Jerome, to visit him at night, and at times he even sent another Jew named Nicodemus to take his place. Because Jerome used to be scared of the Jews sometimes, but then he used to dissent, and at that time the Jews derided Gentiles who would not pronounce the pharyngeals properly, that is, the Jewish alphabet and the pronunciations. Jerome, however, attained such a degree of proficiency in the pronunciation of Hebrew that the transcription of Hebrew words in his writings are more important for knowledge of Hebrew pronunciation at that time. Your rabbis, Tovia Singer, your fellow rabbis have written this site and they have praised Jerome a lot. And you are over here saying that we have changed the Bible. I mean, who gave Jerome the first translation of Hebrew into Latin? Your own rabbis, man. And you're saying we changed the Bible? You are the guys who changed the Bible later using your Masoretic text. Of course, Jerome could have been using the first generation of the Masoretic text. First or the second generation. You guys could have used a later copy. The study of Hebrew prepared Jerome for his important work, a Latin translation of the Bible from the original. this translation, together with this translation of the New Testament from Greek to Latin, was accepted as the official version of scriptures in the Catholic Church, known as the Vulgate, which later translated into English is known as the Douay Rheims, from its Latin name Vulgata. He translated the book of Psalms 3 times. There's all praise over that. Jerome also made various translations of the book of Judith and Tobit from an Aramaic version that since disappeared. Now, there you see, this is the Protestant claim that these books were only in Greek, right? But they were not so in Greek. There were some Aramaic and Hebrew version which later disappeared. These deuterocanonical books. Here, the Jews are actually talking about it. Yeah, and some that Danker, yeah, Sati was practiced, and it still is practiced in some places even today. This is all nonsense that which these guys are talking about. Anyway, back to this guy's lies.
The major universities in India, in New Delhi, you could take biblical Hebrew, and the professor is probably a Jew who came in to get a job. But let's just say, in a country of more than 1 billion people, the second largest country in the world, the largest democracy in the world, country that's so large, and yet in that country, I don't know if there are 5 Christians in the whole country that are literate in Hebrew and could read the Hebrew Bible in its original language, although there are so many Christians. Now, why? Because Indian children are not smart enough? No. They were robbed of an education of the simple reading of the original language of the Hebrew Bible. Isn't that insane? That means you have so many Christian schools in India, so many, all over the country. I mean, in the areas where Christians live.
Oh, tell me, how good do you fare against Christians who know Hebrew? Your debate with Michael Brown, it's plastered all over the internet. You don't want to debate Messianic Jews from the one from Ministry Israel who know the Hebrew, who actually are native speakers of Hebrew. You, my friend Tovia, are an American who has kind of learned Hebrew as an academic discipline, whereas the native speakers of Hebrew, the Messianic Jews over there from the one from Israel Ministry, they will take you down. You don't even want to debate them. Seriously. And here I just spoke about Jerome. So in other words, our English Bible, which we hold over here, if you are holding a copy of the Douay Rheims, it's a direct English translation of the Latin, which was translated from Jerome, who learned Hebrew under rabbis for years within Israel.
And not one of them, not one, is teaching Christian children Hebrew. Oh, they learn.
Tell me, when it comes to Hinduism today, how many of them actually will end up learning Sanskrit? Nope. Tell me, like, when it comes to Hebrew, who are the people actually learned in Hebrew when it comes to the Torah? Who are the people actually learned in Hebrew when it comes to the Torah among the Jews, among the rabbinic Jews? It's only the rabbis. It's only the rabbis, not the laity. It's only the rabbis.
Learn English, and they might learn French and all kinds of other ridiculous, but the Hebrew they don't learn. So therefore, all these Christians who fill stadiums in India,
He's again talking about prosperity preaching and stadiums. Now I'm going to come to that.
In India, you have Christian pastors that could fill a stadium of tens of thousands of people. Some of these...
He's talking about the mega church pastors, the prosperity pastors, like, for example, the Joel Osteen equivalents in India. That's not Christianity.
Pastors come from the United States. On private planes, they come to India with empty suitcases. And when they leave India, their suitcases are full of money, full of jewelry that people give them.
Well, the same can be said about the people whom you're talking to. I'll come to that.
With promises that they'll have more money if they give them their money. I know this personally.
It's just a prosperity gospel, man. It's a false brand of Christianity. You're not refuting Christianity. It's as good as me saying that, fine. Let's say that I'm talking about, say, a Reform Judaism or some liberal form of Judaism, and then I'll equate it against your rabbinic Judaism. You're just drawing a false equivalence here, Tovia. Seriously.
They leave on private jets with suitcases full of money. And what happens is, tragically, the Indian Christians don't read Hebrew. That means they have no access to the original, and they have to rely on false translations, fake translations, not just the English, but in the languages. There are many languages in India, as you know, and they've translated the Bible into those languages, and all those translations are completely corrupt.
Completely corrupt. No access. You just go here to the interlinear, you have access. Saying you're completely corrupt, you go to the Blue Letter Bible, you have access. Come on, man, what are you guys talking about? And they're completely corrupt. Can you verify that with other Hebrew scholars or even secular Hebrew scholars? No, you can't.
And therefore, Christians, my heart goes out to them. That's why I devoted my life to helping them, because they don't know any better. They don't go to the original. It's something so basic.
Where have we heard this nonsense? Where have we heard this nonsense? You should go to the originals. You should know it in that language. Who else yaks all this nonsense? Which other religion yaks all this nonsense? If we remove their book out and remove their sources out and say, nah, that's what the English says, that's not what the Arabic has to say. And this moron, he's just saying the same thing. Go to the originals. Seriously, Tovia Singer, I'll take you more seriously. We should be taking you more seriously if you're a Muslim.
So fundamental is to go to the original document, not to go to a translation, which is really a commentary, in this case, a corrupt commentary.
I have
A corrupt commentary, which is a translation. Oh boy.
something interesting to note here.
And if you're talking about commentaries and corrupt commentaries, you guys do not read the Torah. You guys go to the Talmud to interpret the Torah. Okay? And what's the Talmud? It's commentaries, traditions, and something. If I want to equate it with the apostolic churches, that's what we'll say. Like if it's the Catholic Church, we'll say that this is the catechism, this is the magisterium. Apostolic traditions, we'll say, fine, these are the commentaries of the fathers, these are the canons of the council, these are the dogmas passed in the ecumenical councils, and so on and so forth, to explicate the faith, to authoritatively interpret the Bible. So on that side of the fence, you are just following a similar parallel to what the apostolic churches are doing. And now over here, you're just claiming to say that you should go to the originals and behaving like some Muslim, and at the same time, I don't know, behaving something like a Protestant Jew. When it's not really the case. When it comes to rabbinic Judaism, you look at the Talmud. And when you look at the Talmud, you need to study it under a rabbi. You just don't study it by yourself. There's a branch of Judaism called as Karaite Judaism, Karite. I'll come to that. So it's kind of like anybody can interpret the Torah the way they want to interpret it. So it's like the sola scriptura variant of Judaism, and they kind of have roots similar. They kind of trace their roots to the Sadducee movement.
You are saying that they do not go to the original Hebrew scripture. In fact, they do not go to the Tanakh portion of their Bible.
Tanakh's the Old Testament, Tanakh.
So the Christians.
Okay, and you know what Esther does when she goes to the Tanakh portion of the Bible? Here you go.
Exodus 20. The traditional 10 are to keep the Sabbath, to not kill, to not steal, etc. In Exodus 34, when Moses is called back, Yahweh replaces 8 of the 10 to include the most bizarre commandments like not sacrificing anything with yeast, like celebrating the festival of unleavened bread, and to not cook baby goats in their mother's milk.
Here she is blaspheming the God of the Tanakh. Here she is blaspheming the God of the Tanakh using the Hebrew scripture. And she is here consorting with this guy. Seriously, this is just spiritual harlotry between both of them. I can't say anything more about this. And this other guy pretending to be a Christian. I don't know.
Of India do not want anything to do with the Tanakh as long as it suits their narrative. Only in very few contexts, if they want some kind of support to the statements that they are putting out, only then they go to the Old Testament. So when I point out that missing link between Tanakh and the New Testament, they say, oh, no, we do not have anything to do with Tanakh. All we are concerned with is what Jesus had to say. And
Okay, now she's again talking about some fringe heretical groups. Some of these evangelical groups, they just kind of say, we only go with Jesus's words. We don't follow the Old Testament kind of stuff. So they'll only look at certain, places in Acts of the Apostles and say certain parts of, say, Paul's letters, and they'll reject everything else and maybe just emphasize on the Gospel of Luke, similar to this canon which that guy had, Marcion. That heretic Marcion, that 2nd century heretic Marcion had. So she's again talking about some fringe, born again, so called quote unquote non denominational groups playing that game, saying we don't follow, we only read the New Testament, we don't follow the Old Testament stuff.
what Paul had to say and all the New Testament writers had to say. And you are talking about them not reading the scriptures, Hebrew scriptures, in its original language. Here I'm talking about not reading the Hebrew scriptures at all in whatever language.
That's very, very incisive. There are.
You're not reading the Hebrew scriptures at all in whatever language. Here she is supposedly giving reverence to the Hebrew scriptures, and here she is blaspheming it. How very convenient.
Some very few, but there are some very few, but very, very few Christians have ever read the book of Ezekiel from beginning.
He has a point here, but then tell me how many Jews have read the book of Ezekiel or the book of Jeremiah from beginning to end, let alone in English, if not so in Hebrew? None, except maybe a rabbi.
Beginning to end in their lives. Only a studious few.
And the same thing can be said about you guys. Please, again, you're drawing false equivalences.
That are in seminary, it's just unheard of to read Jeremiah just once in the whole life. Imagine they believe this.
How many Jews have done that, man? How many Jews you meet on the road even do that, unless if they happen to be rabbis?
The word of God. And something you find in India, and you also find in the Far East in general. I think you find it on the Asian continent more frequently, and that is that in hotel rooms, you might literally just have a New Testament that's there in the drawer in the hotel room, and maybe the book of Psalms. And that's
okay. So he's talking about those Gideon's Bibles, which people distribute, and you'd also see some of these street preachers also doing the same thing. If you ever come across them, these small pocket Bibles distributed by Gideon's, which is this Bible, which is this kind of community which sells Bibles, particularly New Testaments in the New King James Version, or you could say in the ESV version, and they often attach the book of Psalms and Proverbs along with it.
That's it. And I never saw that in the United States, but I saw that in the East.
You never saw that in the United States, but you saw that in the East? Seriously? I'm living in a Western country. Seriously, you go to any country, any hotel, even in the United States, in some hotels, you'll just find a copy of the New Testament lying there, the Gideon's New Testament. in the New King James Version with Psalms attached to it. You really are delusional.
And throughout the Asian continent that you have only the Christian Bible and maybe the Book of Psalms, and that's it. And you're right, they memorize certain verses completely out of context. I'm going to say this: these Christians don't have a chance. They don't have a chance.
Yeah, he's got a point over here. Most of these evangeli fish who will just preach all this lovey-dovey stuff and all this stuff and this prosperity preaching and trying to get you in with a few verses and things like that. And yeah, they really are biblically illiterate. They have a chance, but even Tovia Singer will actually make mincemeat out of them, like how your normal Muslim apologist will make mincemeat out of them. But then the same can also be applied to your average Jew, just to be consistent.
That's why I have a very large YouTube channel.
He has a very large YouTube channel. How many subscribers do you have, Tovia? He has a very large YouTube channel. A very large YouTube channel. 55,000 subscribers. That's not really a large YouTube channel. I could say it's considerably, it's a significant YouTube channel. It's not really a large YouTube channel or a very large YouTube channel. 55,000 subscribers. 55K subscribers. And when was this video done, by the way? It was done over a year back. So back then, he wouldn't have even been having 50,000 subscribers, okay? Do you call that a large YouTube channel? Okay, let's see what your rival, Michael Brown, has. 140,000 subscribers. I could say that this is a large YouTube channel, not necessarily a very large YouTube channel, but this is a large YouTube channel. It's got over 100,000 subscribers and almost three times the number of subscribers Tovia Singer has at present. Seriously. And I can tell you for one thing, out of those 55,000 subscribers in Tovia Singer's channel, I'm pretty much sure that at least 50,000 of them will be Abduls. At least 50,000. Tell me, man, how many secular Jews or how many Jews you see in everyday life would even give a damn about apologetics? Seriously.
That is very successful in reaching.
That is very successful in reaching
so many people,
reaching so many people, transforming who? Muslims. Muslims.
their lives.
Transforming their lives.
Because I help them let's go back to the original.
Let's go back to the original. Let's go back to the Hebrew. Let's go back to the Arabic. You don't know the Arabic. I'll just roll that back again. Just for laughs.
That you have only that's it. And you're right. They memorize certain verses. I have a very large YouTube channel that is very successful in reaching so many people, transforming their lives.
Transforming their lives, quote unquote, Muslims.
Because I help them let's go back to the original.
Let's go back to the original. Out of those 55,000 subscribers, I'm willing to bet my life that 50,000 are Muslims.
And you're right. They're not reading the book of Isaiah once. They're memorizing certain verses by heart, even though they believe this is the word of God.
How many Jews do you know read the book of Isaiah even once? No one. Except maybe if you're a rabbi.
Even though the Christian Bible says, look at, I'm prophesied in the Jewish Bible.
Who else says that? Muhammad. I'm prophesied in the Jewish Bible that Jesus says about himself, and these claims can be validated, but Muhammad says that he's prophesied also in the Jewish Bible.
Luke 24:44, and so on. So you're absolutely correct. They don't do that, and therefore their vulnerability is enormous.
Just a minute. Sorry.
When I used to be a child, when I used to go to church,
When I used to be a child and when I used to go to church, is this guy admitting that he's an ex-Christian and he's not really a Christian? Did he just admit that? I thought he was supposed to be a Christian, Hindu nationalist, no, an Indian nationalist Christian. He just admitted something, yeah. When I used to be a child and I used to go to church.
I remember the priest telling that you should not read the Bible. Just listen to our sermons and what is taught in the church.
But that's the same thing the Jews do. They just listen to their rabbis and what is taught in the church. They listen to their rabbis' commentaries and their exposition of the Talmud. They don't really read the Torah themselves because they are not allowed to. In Hebrew, they'll have to study it under a rabbi. That's how it works, Rabbinic Judaism. Unless if Tovia Singer has become a Karaite Jew.
Until the charismatic event came into India, Bible was restricted to the Catholics. The Protestants used to be very what do you call? They used to use the Bible regularly, but the Catholics never used to use it. Since I work on the anti-conversion project,
He works on the anti-conversion projects. You are a Christian and you claim to be a Christian and you're saying that you're working on anti-conversion projects in India.
what they do, what the evangelicals carry. I question them, saying that you are converting people, gullible people who can't even read or write.
Really, they convert gullible people who can't even read or write? Seriously? Hey guys, Hindus, tell me, how many of you even read your own scriptures in Sanskrit? Few of you even read them even in English, and few of them even know what they are in English. You'll rather ask your priest or your tantric or your sadhu to preside and recite things in Sanskrit, and you wouldn't even know what's going on half the time because you guys don't understand Sanskrit. Seriously.
I think they are not educated. It's a far thing to read the Hebrew Bible. So I asked them this question. I said, whoever has converted, has he ever read the Bible once? So what the evangelicals say is this: it's not the knowledge of the Bible that is required; it is the faith. I
I mean, this is
I fall off my chair. And
How many Hindus, Mr. quote unquote Jerome, have actually read the complete Ramayana, the complete Gita, the complete Puranas, all the Vedas, just in English? Forget about Sanskrit. Except maybe your priests or scholars, and I doubt whether there's any Hindu living right now who's actually done that. Quit yakking nonsense. Your average Hindu is more ignorant about their own scripture as compared to your average Christian or your average Muslim and your average Jews.
I've spoken about this aspect in every possible program in the past. And today, evangelical business is centered in the family. It's within the family. It's the mother, father, brother, sister.
So he's again talking about the prosperity gospels where people have just made it as a business. Not necessarily all of evangelicalism, but you could say quite some substantial parts of it. So again, at the end of the day, you guys haven't done anything. You haven't refuted Christianity as a whole. You guys haven't refuted Anglicanism. You guys haven't refuted Pentecostals. You guys haven't refuted Catholicism. You guys haven't refuted Orthodox Christianity. Nothing. Seriously, nothing.
Husband and wife who run this church enterprise. I just wanted to let you know, recently the government of India seized several million rupees from an evangelical, a prominent evangelical who resides in Canada.
Now, what kind of stupid stories are these? Okay, now I'll just be equally be consistent. I'll just be equally be consistent.
Today, all the evangelicals have moved to the US. In the West, they're all sitting in the US and the West, and then they remotely control the churches in it.
Okay, now my turn. I'll just give you some links, some nice, beautiful links to look at about their spiritual gurus, what they have done, especially one fraud called as Osho. A guy called as Osho who was quite prominent in the 1980s. Just a minute, I'll just send links. I'm just looking for them because I'm just using the other monitor. Here goes. He's sending the links one by one. Here's the second one. The third one. Here's the fourth one. And here's one more. If he calls that as an objection to Christianity, that's really a weak objection. The same objection can be leveled against any religion, any political system, any ideology, which is really a weak objection. Okay, so I'll just read it. Let's see what more he has to say before we
So,
go.
whatever Jerome said just now about the scenario in India, evangelicals hoarding tons of boatloads of money, actually truckloads of monies, and then moving away to greener pastures to settle there and remotely control their finances, their
Hey, isn't your master Rajiv Malhotra doing the same thing? Aren't you doing the same thing as well, sitting in the USA, Esther Dhanraj? Huh? Seriously? Speak for yourself. Your master Rajiv Malhotra, you guys are doing the exact same thing. You are sitting there in the US. You're instigating Christian persecution, especially in the rural areas in India, with your false agenda, with your propaganda over here. If you're talking so much about hating colonialism and Christianity and things like that, why are you living in the West? You shouldn't be living in the West. Go back to India.
income that's coming from Indian churches. So, what kind of monies do evangelicals earn?
Okay, now I'll just go through some fun time. So this is this guy called as Osho, called as Bhagwan Shri Rajneesh. I'll just increase the screen size. He was a spiritual guru in the 1980s. And you know this other guy called as Sadguru or Sadguru. Probably you could have seen that guy's face. He's kind of modeled himself a lot after his look. This other fraud. Sadguru. He's another fraud, by the way, with millions of fans. He also yaks nonsense. But here, Osho, Oregon, yeah, Rolls-Royce guru who set up commune in Oregon, dead at 58. Here you go. New Delhi, Bhagwan Shri Rajneesh. Now, Bhagwan literally means God. It just means God, by the way, God or Lord in Hindi, Sanskrit. Shri Rajneesh, the Rolls-Royce guru. Rolls-Royce, by the way, he died at the age of 58. Rajneesh, who claimed 500,000 followers worldwide, suffered heart failure, according to the spokesperson at Rajneesh's commune in Pune. Okay, so this is what he used to call himself. He used the Hindu honorific of Bhagwan, meaning God. Let me just increase it a bit more for the sake of the mobile users. Okay. And he used the Hindu honorific of Bhagwan, meaning God, that Rajneesh, aka Osho, adopted after he began lecturing on meditation in India in the 1960s. Osho is a Buddhist term that means on whom the heavens shower flowers. Here, another false prophet. In 1981, Rajneesh brought his teachings of free sex and materialism to the scrubby hills near Antelope Ore, drawing thousands of slavish disciples whose reward was the guru's daily drive-by in one of his 93 Rolls Royces, many painted psychedelic colors and some decorated with peacocks and lacy curtains. To nearby residents, the commune known as Rajneeshpuram was a monstrous intrusion. So he had kind of set up a cult-like community. It was known as Rajneeshpuram, and he had actually made it into a city. Okay. and the people saw this as a monstrosity. He actually tried to poison the town, and he actually tried to have politicians like the mayor in that area assassinated, by the way. I don't think I ever wished anybody dead, but I wished many times that he would go back to where he belongs. Rajneesh also enriched people in Pune, where he settled after being expelled from the United States in 1985 as part of a plea bargain agreement on immigration fraud charges. Okay. Another militant young Hindu tried to snap Rajneesh. So imagine, even the Hindus got fed up of him with a long life in Pune in 1980. Pune is known as Pune, by the way, Pune. It's an Indian town. But the case was dropped when Rajneesh refused to testify in court. Thank God he is dead. He was a living nuisance. We are extremely relieved that our problems have passed away. Okay. So, old school sex, drugs, and Rajneesh's 93 Rolls Royce. So, here he is, swindling people off. Here, people are just waiting in line here for him to get into his Rolls Royce. Rajneesh's first Rolls Royce. Here, and people here, his cult like followers. Here you go. All Westerners also following him. Just imagine, they abandon their Christian roots, they abandon the God of the Bible, they will settle for atheist naturalism and secularism. They will attack the Bible, they will attack Christianity, they'll attack anything that's got to do with Christianity, paint a secular Jesus, call Christianity irrational, but at the same time, they're ready to follow these frauds, these irrational frauds who promise them sex and spirituality and all these kind of things. This is what the world is coming to, folks. These are all his Rolls Royces back when he owned back in the day. Okay, just a second. Use sex and promiscuity to keep his cult loyal only to him. Yeah, another cultist like Muhammad, or say even the guy who started the cult of LDS, Latter day Saints, Mormonism. Here, doesn't he look like Sadhguru's predecessor? He certainly does. Attempts to enforce sexual participation at the Pune ashram did not always stop at psychological pressure. Sometimes it allegedly extended to the use of violence. Yeah, there you go. So come on, man. You're talking about evangelical preachers taking money and doing all these things. But come on, look at you guys. Let's just be consistent over here. By the way, this Haaretz.com, this is another link. It's an Israeli newspaper. Just a second. I'll just send you this link over here. So what's this article about? It's saying, why is India's government celebrating an anti-Semitic pro-genocide Hitler devotee? Okay. So it's talking about the founder of the Hindu nationalist movement. I mean, this guy's not the founder, but he's one of the key guys. The founder was actually Veer Savarkar. Both of these guys supported anti-Semitism. They liked Hitler for his ideals, for you could say persecuting the Jews and the atrocities committed to the Jews and things like that. And so they said, like, Hitler, who's being a strong nationalist for his country, we the Hindus should be doing the same and getting the Brits out of here, getting the Muslims out of here, getting the Christians out of here, and keep India as a Hindu nationalist country. And fortunately for these guys, the ruling party today is a Hindu right-wing party, aided by the Alakis and the Rashtriya Samaj Sangh, that is the RSS. And Esther, Dhanraj, and all these lackeys you see here, like that Jerome, they are all linked with the RSS. And this is an Israeli newspaper criticizing the Indian government for celebrating this guy. And here we see a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, consorting with these very same people. Seriously, man, just to attack Christianity, banding together to attack Christianity. I just don't get it. This is nothing but demonic influence. There's no rationality over here. Nothing as such.
In Israel, is money the motivation for their conversions of Jews, or is it something else?
It's something else. It's a very good question. So in Israel, it's completely different than India. There is no money that evangelicals hope to gain from people in Israel. None, zero. They leave with empty suitcases. All the money that is used to evangelize Jews in the land of Israel comes from North America. It's the opposite direction. They come with full suitcases, and
Okay, he has a point over here. To be honest, Tovia Singer does has a point over here.
they leave with empty suitcases. Evangelical Christians are pouring money in from South Korea, China.
Evangelical, now over here, this statement of his is dubious. Evangelical Christians are pouring money in from South Korea. Okay, fine. From China, really? China, a communist country. Christians are being persecuted over there, man. Christians are mostly hiding underground. They're not allowed to practice their faith, and you're saying that they're pouring money from China. That's a really dubious statement. I mean, it could be looked into. There could be some truth, or he could again be yakking a lie, as he always was throughout the video.
North America, and so on. And they're devoted to converting the Jews to Christianity and not for economic reasons.
Well, the Jews in Israel are not really Jews. It could just be the 30% who follow ultra-Orthodox Rabbinic Judaism. The remaining 60 or 70% are mostly secular or just cultural Jews who just follow Jewish customs and are not really religious.
But rather, they're here because they believe there are three reasons, essentially. Number one, they believe that the Jews play an integral role in Jesus' second coming. They believe, based on a passage in Matthew 23.
It's not just Matthew 23, there are heaps of other passages wherein, like, even Paul says in Romans again, that Jesus will come when that the Jews will convert when the number of Gentiles has been fulfilled. But it's also necessary for us to preach the gospel to all nations first. Okay.
That Jesus can't make his second coming unless the Jews are first converted to Christianity. They believe that only the mass conversion of the Jews to Christianity could enable Jesus' return. They don't believe that about people in India. It doesn't make a difference how many people in India, in the villages, all throughout Europe, it's a very large country, it doesn't make a difference.
What kind of difference are you making, Tovia, in your own country? Atheism, wokeism, secularism, it's dominating your country. Why are you scared of Christians so much?
Don't bring Jesus' second coming. It has to be the conversion of the Jews because of what it says at the end of Matthew 23. I will not return unless you, and the you here is the Jews, say, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. So they, number one, want to convert the Jews to bring the second coming of Jesus. There is no money for them here.
Yeah, Tovia is a US citizen, by the way. And he's not a native Hebrew speaker. He just learned Hebrew as an academic discipline. There have been people from One for Jesus ministry, the Messianic Jewish ministry in Israel, who are native Israelis and native speakers who have challenged him to debates. No response from Tovia Singer. They will destroy him.
The only catch is, there is a caveat, and that is they cannot raise money in North America and South Korea in the East unless they're involved in converting Jews. So evangelical Christians around the world will pour millions of dollars, enormous amounts of money, into the missions here in Israel to evangelize.
I don't know how much of it is true, how much of it is false, but he has a point over here. There's a lot of evangelicals for Israel, which really shouldn't be the case, to be really honest. Not necessarily for conversions, because Israel is a secular country. They are in sin. At the end of the day, they are still in sin, and God might rain down judgment on them if they don't repent.
Evangelize the Jews who live here in the Holy Land, but they do not anticipate to take money from Jews here. They have no interest in that at all. They get their money from Christians abroad who sponsor this kind of effort. There is also, in addition, the New Testament says that you should go to the Jew first and then to the Greek. Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Paul says that. And
He's just behaving like a Bible pervert. Romans chapter 1, verse 16. So what? To quit quoting it out of context, I quoted Romans 11, which is later on, where the greater context of the thing earlier on in the video, to refute another claim of yours. You're just being a Bible pervert, taking the Bible out of context again. Pretty much like what Muslims would do.
And Matthew says that in chapter 10. Don't go to the Gentiles, go only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
They were supposed to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, but that is when Jesus sends out his disciples to have miracles to those towns and stuff and come back, where he sends out the 70 and he sends out the 12. That is in Luke as well. Just to go to the normal towns, don't go to the Gentile towns, because that was Jesus' mission first. But then, since the Jews were prophesied to reject him, they were supposed to go to the Gentiles, and Paul again says that in Acts 13, when the Jews reject Paul's preaching in one particular town and they have him thrown out, and he just dusts his feet and he walks off with Barnabas.
The third reason for the interest in Jewish evangelism is that the Jews pose a problem to the church.
The Jews by no means pose a problem to the church. Now, this is where I'm going to bust Tovia using his own sources. This is going to be the cream of this video, and there will be a part 2. I'll have to review part 2.
The fact that the Jewish people, of all people in the world, reject the claims of Christianity is very problematic for the church, always has been. And it's an issue that comes up in the Christian canon itself.
Now listen to how carefully he says. Listen to, what he's saying very carefully.
Because the Jews are the only people who are waiting for the Messiah. The idea of a Messiah is uniquely Jewish. No other nation had an idea of a Messiah that would come. The word Christ meant nothing to the Greeks prior to the advent of Christianity. The Jews are the only people that can read the Bible in its original.
Not all Jews, only the rabbis. That's about it. Not the only people. You speak to 90% of Jews now, they can't read the Bible in its original, except if they have done a bit of bar mitzvah classes and they leave it at the age of 12 and goodbye tata. That's nothing different from your Catholics or whatever, some of our apostolic Christians having classes for First Holy Communion and confirmation and then leaving it. It's just about the same, and yet not, grasping the faith much. He's just talking nonsense here.
Language. And they're the only ones who are waiting for the coming of the Messiah. The Jews have a reputation of being a smart people. They have
Smart people. Now listen to this part.
whether people like us or don't like us, people usually think of the Jews as being a pretty smart group. So here you have a group that has a reputation for their intelligence.
They have now listen to his claim.
Of people who know their Bible
They don't know their Bible
in its original
Please, they don't know their Bible.
language. The very people who brought the idea of a Messiah to the world, the only people who read their Bible, and
The only people who read their Bible? What are you smoking, man? It's only your rabbis who read your Tanakh and interpret it authoritatively. So that's your authority. If you're talking about rabbinic Judaism, if you're talking about Karaite Judaism, are you being a Karaite, Tovia? Are you being a heretic? If you're talking about Karaite Judaism, Karaite, it's over there only the Jews can interpret the Torah if they read it by themselves and come to their own conclusion. It's like their version of sola scriptura. Okay.
People were waiting for the Messiah and lived here in Israel. Who was here in Israel 2,000 years ago when Jesus lived? Who was here? Were the Eskimos here? No, no. Were there Native American Indians here? No, they weren't here. Who was here in the land of Israel? Jews. We met him. We met Jesus. And we concluded that he's not the Messiah.
He concluded he's not the Messiah. Not all Jews. The Jews who believed in him became the first Christians.
That is the worst nightmare for the church, because here you have the very people that were waiting for the Messiah, could read their Bible, and met who they claimed to be the Messiah, and we really, really could have used the Messiah 2,000 years ago. It would have been terrific, because Messiah means the end of the Roman Empire and a new life of freedom and liberation. And therefore, listen very carefully, is only the conversion of a Jew to Christianity that can lend any credibility to the church.
Thanks for making our case, man. Who are Jesus' first disciples? They were Jews. Who was Paul? Paul was an extremist Jew who wanted Christians dead, and he converted to Christianity. Even secular scholars agree that Paul actually converted to Christianity and he was persecuting Christians. So thank you for making our case, Tovia. I applaud you for telling the truth.
Not the conversion of a peasant in India.
Yeah, but the first Christians were Jews. Thanks for making our case. Jesus appeared to at least 500 people after the resurrection, according to Paul in 1 Corinthians 15.
That doesn't mean anything. It lends no credibility to the church. But the
No credibility to the church.
Jew, if you can even get one Jew, that's worth more than 1 million Indians, because they are the ones who can give Christianity a stamp of approval.
We already got that stamp of approval 2,000 years ago. We already got that stamp of approval
No one
2,000 years ago.
else. And that's why they're here. So what is going on here in Israel is strikingly different than was going on in India.
So he's saying that if it was the Messiah, they would have known. It was not Jesus. We came to the conclusion because we are smart people. Now, let me come to this part. This is going to be the fun part. Yeah, this thing. I'm going to give you guys another link. Paste it here in the chat, in the StreamYard chat. Open that link up. And now I'm going to start this decimation. This is a Jewish website, guys. This is a Jewish website, by the way. It's not a Christian website. Messianic figure Simeon Bar Kokhba led the Jews in a failed revolt against the Roman rules. Yep, that's what I'm showing. That's what I'm showing. Deus Imperator. Now here it is. And when did this revolt happen? This revolt happened around 132 AD. Jews declared this man as the Messiah, i.e. 100 years after Jesus's resurrection. He said the Jews would have known if they got, and this is what happened. Now, the debacle of the first revolt against Rome was followed by a period of relative calm. Yet during the years of rule by the autonomous Hittite patriarchs and the leaders of the Tanaitic academics, problems were brewing both inside and outside the land of Israel. These developments took place despite the separation of Judea from the province of Syria. Okay, I'll just come to the meat. Messianic yearnings. It was not until the reign of the Emperor Trajan, 98 to 117 CE, that is AD, that that the problems came to the surface in 115 to 117 AD, while, or I could say Christian era, while Trajan was occupied, not Common Era, in Mesopotamia. Jews throughout the diaspora rose up against their non-Jewish neighbors in a violent confrontation. There you go. Before long, pitched walls were being fought in Egypt. The Jews of Cyrene, Simon of Cyrene, in North Africa, were said to have massacred their neighbors. Here, the Jews were revolting against the Gentiles. Similar disturbances followed in Cyprus and Mesopotamia. So all these revolts coming together of the Jews to overthrow Roman rule signaled the coming of a so-called Messiah for them. Okay, so these tensions were brewing about 80 to 90 years after the time of Christ. What is especially significant in these disturbances is the evidence that they were fueled by the very same messianic yearnings that had helped to fan the flames of the Great Revolt and would soon lead to the Bar Kokhba revolt, Bar Kokhba revolt, Simon Bar Kokhba, Simon son of Kokhba. To be sure, other social, economic, and political causes were at work, especially a general decline in relations between Jews and their neighbors in the Hellenistic world, that is the Gentile world. But when these finally led to the rise of a rebellion, it was the belief in a messianic future that made possible the leap of faith to the belief that the revolt might succeed. In other words, 100 years after the time of Christ, Jews named this guy their Messiah to overthrow the Roman Empire, and it was Jews all over the world, all over the Roman Empire. Just imagine, they rejected Jesus, and there was Tovia Singer just ranting in the video that Jews are smart people. We came to the conclusion Jesus wasn't the Messiah. So if we had the Messiah, we would have known. Yeah, they would have known. So this is what happened. And this revolt got crushed by the Romans. And you know what happened over here? This is when, during this revolt, they asked the Jews who were followers of Christ, that is back then, since back then we had the Gentile believers and we had the Jews who were followers of Christ, the first Christians. They asked the Jews who were followers of Christ to join them in the revolt. So what they did was they rejected the offer to join in the Bar Kokhba revolt. The Christian Jews rejected the offer to join the Bar Kokhba revolt because they said that we can't accept Bar Kokhba as the Messiah, because for us, Jesus is the Messiah, he is God. So after they lost this revolt, that is when the actual tensions and hatred of the Jews began, and the hatred of the rabbinic Jews actually against Christianity actually starts over here. The real hatred. Not the hatred which was seen in the New Testament, but the actual hatred, the vitriol which they have now. Early in the times of Hadrian, there was an abortive attempt to rebuild the Jerusalem temple there. As you know, rebuilding the temple meant the coming of the Messiah. That is this. In this case, it was the second temple. The failure of this effort was another great disappointment for the Jewish community of Palestine. Soon after, Hadrian founded a city of his own in Jerusalem called Aelia Capitolina, where he erected a temple to the Greek god Zeus. It is probable that Hadrian prohibited circumcision. So this is the emperor, even before the Bar Kokhba revolt, although some see the outlawing of circumcision as a measure enacted after the uprising had begun. So this guy comes here, Bar Kokhba. The short story is he started guerrilla warfare, much like Judas Maccabeus 2 centuries prior to this, 3 centuries prior to this. Within a short time, it had spread throughout the country, and the rebels took Jerusalem, which had not been heavily fortified by the Romans. So they took control of Jerusalem, these Jews under him. Okay, it is possible that sacrifices were now reinstituted in Jerusalem, and that work was begun on rebuilding the sanctuary, to rebuild the temple. From the coins Bar Kokhba struck, we know of his high priest Eleazar, who must have taken the lead in efforts to re-establish sacrificial worship. Here we see a reflection of the ancient copy of two messiahs, a lay and a priestly figure prominent in the testaments of the 12 patriarchs and in certain Qumran scrolls. So they were thinking this guy is the Messiah. So they were saying of two messiahs. One is a priest, Eleazar, and one they thought to be a king, which is Simon Bar Kokhba. The priest and the king, the two messiahs, which is also in Jewish messianic prophecies as Simon, as a Mashiach bar Yosef, and there's a Mashiach bar David. One of them dies, but then he gets resurrected by the other one. But what's to be said over here, the priest and the ruler for us is Jesus Christ, Jesus the high priest and Jesus the ruler, the two messianic personalities in one. That's the actual fulfillment. The son of the star, the son of David. We know from the documents that the country was organized, blah, 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 blah. And you know the date when this revolt got crushed? This date when this revolt got crushed, it's called as there is another link I'll give you guys, just a minute. This is again Bar Kokhba rebellion. Just a second. Here. This is the date that revolt got crushed. I'll just send it again. Okay. So it's called as the 9th of Av. The 9th day of the month of Av in the Jewish calendar. I'll just write it down. Bar Kokhba revolt was crushed. Okay. And now this date is really very significant, biblically speaking, and also with respect to the Jews. Now, what happened on the 9th of Av, of the month of Av? These events happened. I'll just put it there. Now, if you guys are reading the book of Numbers, Moses sent those spies out to spy out on the land, right? Those 12 spies, and then they returned. The spies returned with a bad report. So I'll just go here. I think it's Numbers 14, is it? I could be off by a chapter or two. Just be sure. Yeah, here you go. Numbers 14. I'm just using the New King James Version again. Okay, it's Numbers 13 actually. The context starts from Numbers 13. I was off by a chapter. The spies are sent into the land of Canaan. So actually Moses had sent 12 spies to spy the promised land. Out of them was a successor, Joshua, and another guy from the tribe of Judah called as Caleb, but he sent 12 spies, one from each tribe of Israel. So what happened after they came back? And Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, as Joshua, that is Joshua, his successor. Then Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, I'm reading from verse 17 from chapter 13. Okay. Go up into the way into the south and go up the mountains and see what the land is like, that is their promised land, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell is it good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are forests that are not, be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. So these spies went up and spied out the land from the wilderness as far as Rehob near the entrance of Hamath. And when they came back, I'll just say that they came back. The place was called the Land of Eshcol because, okay. And they returned, I'm just skipping over to verse 25. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Okay, 40 days. They spent 40 days spying out that land. Okay, so the two good guys were Joshua and Caleb. Okay. Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them. So these spies returned and they brought the fruit of the land. They picked some fruits which they found in the land, okay, as Moses had commanded them to. They told him, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Okay. Nevertheless, now this is the positive thing they're saying, but now this is the negative thing, the bad report. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong, the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anakdar, that is the Anakim, the giants. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, the Hittites, the Jebusites. So they're talking about the enemies in the land, and then this just destroyed the morale of the people, saying that they dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. But then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are able to overcome it." So Caleb showed faith over here, like how God made them overcome the Egyptians. The same kind of faith Caleb was demonstrating over here. But the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." So, what these men, the other 10 spies, did, they instigated a bad report and they ended up causing a rebellion among the people. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report to the land which they had spied out, saying, "The land though which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our sight, and so we were in their sight." See the negative report, and this makes the people rebel and be contentious, and then God brings their anger down, so they get punished. You guys spent 40 days in the land spying it out, so now you guys are going 40 days in exile. I mean, 40 days, 40 years in the desert. So all the congregation lifted up their voices and cries and Moses, and they started complaining. And then they said, "See, now they're rebelling. So they said to one another, let us select a leader and go back to Egypt, go back to the filth." Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua and Caleb, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their coats, and they spoke to the congregation of the children of saying, "The land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land." See, they are strengthening their brethren. If the Lord delights in us, then he'll bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. See, now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of the meeting before all the children of Israel. So the Lord appeared. And then what happened to them? The people who rebelled, there was a fight, a big fight over here. God brought judgment on them, and they had to wander 40 years in the desert. So coming back to the point, the spies returned with a bad report. When did this happen? According to the Jewish calendar, on the 9th day, 9th of Av. Okay, so it's a day of fasting and mourning on the 9th day of commemoration, commemorating the destructions of the first and the second temple. Just imagine. This was a day where God brought judgment, and both temples were destroyed also on the same day, the first temple as well as the second temple. The destruction of the first temple is recorded in the Bible. The destruction of the second temple isn't, but it's there in Jewish traditions. The battle at Bethar was lost. So this is the Simon Bar Kokhba rebellion, which I talked about, which took place 100 years after the time of Christ, where they elected their false Messiah to take down the Roman Empire, and it was lost. He was killed. Then the Romans did this. The Jews were expelled from England. The Jews were banished from Spain, and both world wars began on the same day. And who were affected due to both the world wars? Again, the Jews. So just imagine all these bad things happened to the Jews. The wrath of God was upon them on this day. And they have chronicled this. And this site is Chabad.org, people. Chabad.org, by the way. Chabad or Chabad.org, however you want to pronounce it. It's again a website which is written by the rabbis. Just imagine, look at the admissions they are making, yet they can't see. So much of blindness. One more thing about why covenantal Judaism. I'm not talking about rabbinic Judaism, covenantal Judaism. That is the covenant which was revealed to the Jews at Mount Sinai had become void. Now, the next source I'll be looking to is the Talmud. The Talmud. Of all the places, I'm going to the Talmud. Okay. just to, because the Talmud shoots them in their foot. It really shoots them in their foot. So I'll just drop the link. Give me a minute. Yep. Yeah, they are ultra orthodox rabbis, ultra traditional. And I'd like to thank this guy, Brother Deus Parataya, for sharing me some of this material concerning the Talmud. He's a Catholic Jew, by the way. Okay, so I'll read from this one. Now, this is important. If you guys know your Old Testament, you'll know the significance of these things. Without the presence of Shimon HaZadik, that is Simon the Righteous, he was a Jewish high priest who died around 200 BC. Simon the Righteous, who died around 200 years before Christ in the Second Temple era. Among them, the Jewish people were no longer worthy of the many miracles that had occurred during his lifetime. So, actually, 7 miracles that occurred during this lifetime. Okay, for this reason, following his death, his brethren, the priests, refrained from blessing the Jewish people with the explicit name of God and the priestly blessing. So, the priestly blessing that's in Numbers, that may God's light shine upon you, that blessing given in the book of Numbers. So, they stopped actually pronouncing the name of God after this priest died, after this high priest died, about 200 years before Christ. Shimon HaZadik, which means Simon the Righteous or Simon the Just. He was kind of like the last pope of Judaism. So after, and about 7 miracles that occurred during his time. So 3 of the during his lifetime. So he was kind of considered as a saintly figure among the Jews. Yeah, he's saying that he was the last Zadokite ruler of Judah. Now, Zadokites were the priests who were descended from Zadok, who was the high priest under Solomon and David. So then the sages taught during the tenure of this high priest, Shimon HaZadik or Simon the Righteous, the lot for God always rose in the high priest's right hand. Now listen to this. The lot for God always rose in the high priest's right hand, and after his death, it occurred only occasionally. So whenever the priest used to, decree the will of God, you had things like the Urim and the Thummim in the first temple period. So you had other things to, decipher what's the will of God if you had to make a decision. So it always used to come from the right hand of the high priest. But after this guy died, it stopped coming from the right. It only used to come from the right hand of the high priest occasionally. Now this part is important, folks. But during the 40 years prior to the destruction of the second temple, the lot for God did not arise in the high priest's right hand at all. So now just to make this thing clear, so I'll just make some notes here. 200 BC, roughly, Simon the Righteous, that is Jewish high priest, dies roughly, okay. During his lifetime, many miracles happened among the Jewish people. One more thing, after his death, the Jews stopped pronouncing God's divine name. Okay, the Tetragrammaton. Now, what's important is after his death, something which they would say, the lot for God used to only come out of the high priest's right hand sometimes. Okay, prior to that, it always used to come. But it stopped coming out from the high priest's right hand about 40 years before the second temple was destroyed. Now, which year was the second temple destroyed? In 70 80. 70 80. Roughly 70 minus 40. What's the answer? 30 80. What happened around 30 80? Anyone know? Anyone in the chat? What happened in 30 80? Or around 30 80, if you want to say even 33 80. What event happened that time? Anyone in the chat? Anyone's paying attention? Come on. About 17 people watching. Yeah, the crucifixion of Christ. Bingo, Catholic Crusader. Yeah, Deus Imperator. Similar answer. Crucifixion, or some people would like to say approximately 33 80. Up to you. There are two dates, either 30 80 or 33 80. Christ's crucifixion happened. Now notice this thing stopped coming out of the high priest's right hand in 30 AD. This was important. Now one more thing happened in 30 AD. If I'm continuing to read the Talmud further. Now one more thing. So too the strip of crimson wool that was tied to the head of the goat that was sent to Azazel did not turn white. Okay, so what is this crimson wool? So if you're reading the Old Testament, Law of Moses, I think this is in Leviticus. I could be wrong. I think it's either in Leviticus or in Numbers. I can't remember the exact chapter, I think, or in Numbers. You know the scapegoat? Which was sent to the desert by the high priest to the desert demon, Azazel. Okay, so the goat carried the sins of the nation of Israel. Okay, the goat carried the sins of the nations of Israel. And now what the Talmud says is, the Talmud is saying they used to tie a red cloth on this goat and send it to the desert. Okay, now this cloth used to turn white, meaning the nation's sins were forgiven. This used to happen once a year. If I'm not wrong. So this thing used to happen once a year. This cloth used to turn white, and it's there in the Old Testament, except this bit, it's in the Talmud. They just want to, explain what used to go on. So meaning God accepted the sacrifice of the goat and forgave people's sins. But again, according to the Talmud, this stopped happening. That is, the cloth did not turn white, which meant God rejected their sacrifice and did not forgive the sins of the nation by this means anymore. Okay, Why? Because the ultimate sacrifice was Christ already made. A new covenant had begun. This covenant was void, rejected. Now, one more thing happened, by the way. See, the Talmud's making another admission. And the westernmost lamp of the candelabrum did not burn continually. Now, this thing is actually, yeah, that's the Day of Atonement, like that's what used to happen, and the Talmud just added a commentary over here. But this thing happening, like the strip of crimson wool that was tied to the head of the goat, did not turn white. So it used to turn white if the sins were forgiven. That is, the sacrifice was this, but it stopped turning white. It still used to remain crimson. That means the sins were no longer being forgiven 40 years before the temple got destroyed. Same thing here. Uh, this candelabrum also did not burn continually. So what was that? So this, they had a lamp in the temple which used to burn continually to signal the presence of God in the temple, in the Jewish temple. Okay, and they rarely used to refill the oil. Okay, but as of 30 AD, this oil used to go out from the lamp more frequently, that they had to end up frequently, that they had to end up, say, frequently filling it. So this is what happened. In other words, God was no longer in their temple as of 30 AD. God had left his presence. God was no longer in their temple as of 30 AD. And also, before the first temple was being destroyed, Ezekiel in his visions had seen that the glory of God had left the first temple back then, and the Ark of the Covenant had left the first temple. And the same thing the Jews are reporting in the Talmud when it comes to the second temple. You see that? So, this is what was happening here. God was no longer accepting their sacrifices, meaning their covenant was void. Covenantal Judaism was tied, the new covenant had begun through the church. So there you go. I'll have to do part two, and part two I'll be going more deeper, Lord willing, sometime maybe next week or the week after. So guys, thanks for watching. Feel free to share, subscribe, rewatch, and please keep me in prayers, because tomorrow, Lord willing, I'm going to expose that fraud Canadian quote unquote Catholic. Number one, he shouldn't be doing apologetics. I'll just show how pathetic he is. And number two, this guy's a degenerate and he's mentally ill. I don't know what's up with him. Okay, please keep me in prayers, guys. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all. Take care.